from a really young age, society feeds us this one highly specific image of what it means to survive a hard time.
Right. Yeah.
You're basically told to be like a rubber band. You know, you get stretched by a difficult situation, maybe pulled to your absolute breaking point, but then the crisis passes and snap.
You bounce right back.
Exactly. You return to your original shape, just exactly as you were before.
Which is, it's a comforting fiction.
It really is. Because what if that entire concept, that central metaphor for survival, is actually physically and psychologically impossible?
What's fascinating here is that this isn't just about feeling better emotionally. We're looking at actual, measurable cardiovascular survival.
Yeah, and that brings us to the source for today's deep dive. We're looking at the work of board-certified cardiologist Dr. Tara Narula. She argues that bouncing back is just a complete myth.
Completely. Because the data shows resilience is a tangible mechanical skill that you can practice.
Right.
It is not some rare genetic trait you are simply born with or without. It's a biological toolkit.
And today, we are popping the hood on the literal medical mechanics of how stress attacks the body. We're going to figure out what surviving actually looks like when you can't just, snap back.
But before we get into that biological toolkit for modern stress, we really have to redefine what resilience actually is.
Yeah, let's start there.
So Dr. Narula's central thesis is foundational. When tragedy strikes, whether that's a severe medical diagnosis, a sudden loss, or a massive life upheaval, you do not bounce back. You are forever changed.
The person you were before the event is basically gone.
Gone.
Which, that sounds incredibly heavy until you hear how she frames it.
Yeah, she draws on this beautiful concept from Michelangelo.
Right, the marble and the angel.
Exactly. When he looked at a block of raw marble, Michelangelo famously said he carved the stone simply to set the angel free.
I love that. And she applies this directly to human trauma, right? Like, we are the marble.
We are the marble. And life's adversity, the chronic stress, the sudden tragedies, that is the chisel.
It just chips away at us, physically and mentally altering our shape.
Right, we don't magically become a smooth, untouched block of marble again. We emerge as a completely new, differently shaped creation.
To ground that abstract concept, there's this really profound story from the source about a friend of Dr. Narula's named Cass. This was back during her intern days at Stanford.
Yeah, Cass's story is so moving. She had wanted a child for years, went through extensive IVF treatments, and finally got pregnant.
Which is a huge victory on its own.
Huge. But then, just 3 months into her pregnancy, she received an unimaginably cruel diagnosis of ovarian cancer.
Man, just having the future you fought so hard for completely upended in a single afternoon.
It's devastating. Yet instead of crumbling, Cass actually embodied that Michelangelo concept.
Right.
She didn't bounce back to a cancer-free life. That door was permanently closed for her, but she adapted to the chisel.
She finished her pregnancy, right?
She did. She delivered her daughter. And for the final 2 years of her life, she lived with this intense, deliberate presence. She wrote about her journey, she documented her love for her daughter, and she meticulously made plans for her child's life after she passed.
Wow.
Yeah, she lived deeply despite the unimaginable. She allowed herself to be a new shape.
Okay, I want to pause on that for a second, though. Because when we talk about never returning to who we were and just accepting that the chisel permanently alters us, there's a part of me that feels like, well, isn't that admitting defeat?
What do you mean?
Like, doesn't that sort of imply the trauma wins because it permanently scarred you?
It feels that way, absolutely, until you look at the baseline of human psychology. We have this massive cultural misconception.
Which is what?
We assume that when a person gets hit with a traumatic event, shattering into a million unrecoverable pieces is the default. We just assume post-traumatic stress disorder is the standard human reaction to severe trauma.
Right. We think everyone gets PTSD from a massive shock.
Exactly, but the clinical data tells a very different story. The vast majority of people actually do not develop PTSD.
Wait, really?
Really. The baseline for the human brain and body is actually to adapt. We are literally hardwired to be okay.
So we are biologically engineered to survive the absolute worst things that can happen to us.
We are. And realizing that your physiological baseline is survival gives you immense agency. You aren't just sitting around hoping you drew the lucky resilience gene.
Right. You have a biological foundation of survival.
Exactly. And you can train that mechanism to not just endure, but to construct a new version of joy.
Okay, but that raises a massive contradiction, though.
Okay, let's hear it.
If we are biologically hardwired to survive, why does modern life feel so incredibly overwhelming? Like, why are we all so burnt out if our baseline is resilience?
Ah, that is the million-dollar question.
Right. To answer that, we have to look at what stress actually does inside our veins. And here's where it gets really interesting. We need to bring in Robert Sapolsky. He's the Stanford professor who wrote this amazing book called Why Zebras Don't Get Ulcers. He breaks down the fundamental mismatch between our ancient biology and our modern environment.
Right. So from an evolutionary standpoint, the fight-or-flight stress response is an absolute masterpiece.
It's kept us alive for millennia.
Exactly. I mean, imagine you are a primitive human and you encounter a lion in the wild.
Okay.
Instantly, your brain triggers a massive chemical cascade. Your amygdala sounds the alarm.
Your adrenal glands just flood your system with cortisol and epinephrine?
Yes, your heart rate skyrockets to pump oxygen to your limbs. Your blood vessels constrict to increase blood pressure.
And doesn't your body actively shut down all the long-term stuff?
Yeah, all non-essential functions. Digestion, reproduction, cellular repair. It shuts all of that down so it can funnel every single ounce of energy into helping you literally run for your life.
And here's the crucial mechanism. Once you escape the lion and you're safe, the alarm system turns off.
Right.
The cortisol clears out. Your digestion turns back on. The zebra goes back to calmly eating grass.
But look at how we live today. We are activating that exact same life or death biological cascade, but we're doing it for completely mundane things.
Right, like an email.
Exactly. You trigger the lion response because your boss sends a vague, passive-aggressive email at 9 p.m.
Or you get an unexpected medical bill in the mail.
Or you spend 20 minutes doom-scrolling through catastrophic news headlines.
So basically, our biological alarm system is completely broken. We're treating a stressful Slack message like a literal predator chewing on our leg.
Yes. And because we never actually physically run away from the email, we never burn off that adrenaline and glucose.
Which is where Dr. Narula's perspective as a cardiologist becomes terrifyingly clear.
It really does.
We are bathing our internal organs in a constant, relentless flood of stress hormones. Epinephrine and norepinephrine are constantly spiking your heart rate.
And cortisol is constantly keeping your blood pressure elevated. Over time, that high-pressure blood flow physically batters the delicate endothelial cells lining your blood vessels.
It actually causes microscopic tears.
Yes. And your body tries to heal those tears with inflammation, which makes the blood vessels sticky.
And that allows plaque to build up.
Exactly. So chronic stress isn't just a mental burden. It is literally scarring the inside of your cardiovascular system.
Wow. It's a recipe for a medical catastrophe.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, cardiovascular disease is already the leading cause of death for both men and women, and you see the extreme end of this danger in caregiving.
Oh, for sure. Caregiver burnout is so real.
Dr. Narula treats a lot of caregivers. She talks about 3 different female patients she saw in just a single month. All 3 were caring for sick husbands.
Just incredibly high-stress situations.
Yeah. One was dealing with Parkinson's and dementia. One was recovering from a stroke, and one was managing severe mental health issues.
The relentless 24/7 pressure on those women must be just suffocating. You're always waiting for the next emergency.
The lion is essentially living in your house.
Yeah.
And a caregiver's natural instinct is to give every single drop of their energy to their loved one. They ignore their own spiking blood pressure. They ignore their lack of sleep.
But Dr. Narula pushes back on that.
Strongly. She has to have very blunt conversations with them about the oxygen mask rule.
You have to secure your own mask before helping others.
Exactly. If a caregiver allows chronic stress to physically deteriorate their own heart, it is game over for both them and the person they're caring for. Managing your stress isn't a luxury or a spa day.
It's a critical survival mechanism.
Yes.
So knowing that our biology is fundamentally working against us in this modern landscape of constant microstressors, how do we fix it? We have to find a way to short-circuit that alarm system.
And counterintuitively, that doesn't start with fighting the stress.
Right. It starts with the absolute hardest step, which is acceptance. Because if you are fighting the reality of your situation, you are keeping that sympathetic nervous system locked in the on position.
Dr. Narula shares a terrifying personal story about this exact mechanism.
This was when she was in medical school, right?
Yeah, she was a 23-year-old medical student, young and perfectly healthy, and she woke up one day and suddenly went blind in the bottom half of her right eye.
That is horrifying.
The doctors were completely baffled. They told her it might have been a minor stroke, or it could be the early onset of multiple sclerosis.
Oh my God.
In an instant, she was facing the very real possibility that she wouldn't be able to walk, see, or ever finish medical school.
Her entire planned future just vanished into this void of uncertainty.
Right. And what saved her in that moment wasn't a sudden medical cure. It was actually a card her mother sent her in the mail.
Featuring the Serenity Prayer.
Yes, the plea to accept the things we cannot change, the courage to change the things we can, and the wisdom to know the difference.
Her mother essentially told her, look, you can waste the next 2 years of medical school agonizing over a worst-case scenario that hasn't even happened yet.
Keeping your body in a state of sheer panic.
Right. Or you can accept the profound uncertainty, put one foot in front of the other, and just take life day by day.
That mechanism of acceptance is central to the work of resilience researcher Lucy Hone.
Yeah, Hone's story is heartbreaking. She experienced the ultimate unimaginable tragedy. Her 12-year-old daughter was killed in a car crash.
It's unimaginable. As someone whose entire academic career was built on studying resilience, she suddenly had to test her own theories on her own survival.
Right, because adversity doesn't discriminate.
Exactly. And Hone introduced this highly visual concept to explain how we survive that level of devastation. She calls it the goalpost.
Okay, walk us through that.
When you're moving through life, you're naturally aiming for a specific goalpost. You have a vision of your family, your career, your retirement. But when your life shatters, that original goalpost is vaporized.
It's just gone.
Gone. Hone realized that if she kept staring at the empty, smoking crater where her old goalpost used to be, the stress and grief would physically destroy her.
So what did she do?
She had to mentally pick up a new goalpost and plant it in a different location. She still had a husband and other children to live for. She had to give her brain a new direction to aim for.
Okay, let me jump in here. Because if you're going through a major career collapse or you get a chronic illness and you just move the goalposts because the original dream got too hard, I mean, doesn't that just feel like settling? Doesn't that feel like lowering your standards for your own life?
It's easy to misinterpret it as giving up, definitely. But we have to reframe what the goalpost actually is.
Okay.
It isn't a measure of your worth. It's a navigational tool for your brain. It's about establishing a new source of meaning so your mind isn't endlessly looping on what you lost.
So it's about survival.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Dr. Narula had a patient who went in for a routine surgery and suffered a complication that left him 70% blind. 6 months later, he walked into Dr. Narula's office, and to her absolute shock, he was smiling.
Really?
Yeah, he had an undeniable lightness to him. He credited 2 things for his survival: radically accepting what he could no longer change and leaning heavily on his social support system.
So for him, moving the goalpost wasn't lowering his standards. It was building a lighthouse.
I like that.
When you're lost in the dark, a lighthouse gives you a point on the horizon to move toward. If you stubbornly demand the old goalpost return, you just drown in the dark.
Precisely. And once you've accepted the new reality and planted that new goalpost, you have to actively rewire how you view your own identity within that new reality.
Dr. Narula calls this cognitive flexibility.
Yes. She uses the phrase, be the river, not the rock.
Right. A rock stubbornly sits in the middle of the riverbed, just getting battered by the current until it slowly erodes. But the river simply flows around the obstacles.
Exactly. And there is a highly actionable psychological tool for building this cognitive flexibility. It's called the identity pie.
It's deceptively simple, really.
It is. You just draw a circle on a piece of paper and cut it into pie slices, labeling each slice with a piece of your identity. You might write parent, baker, dog owner, marathon runner, community volunteer, friend.
But the critical rule of this exercise is that the medical diagnosis, the bankruptcy, or whatever current crisis you're drowning in, is only allowed to occupy one single slice of that pie.
Which is brilliant from a neurological perspective.
It's almost like having a diversified stock portfolio for your soul.
Yes.
If one slice of your identity crashes, say your career takes a massive hit, or your health fails, the whole market of you doesn't go bankrupt.
Yeah.
Because you still have all these other thriving identity assets holding your value up.
That analogy perfectly tracks with how the brain operates. When you hyper-focus on your stressor, your amygdala, the brain's threat detection center, perceives that the threat makes up 100% of your existence.
So it sounds a continuous deafening alarm.
Right. But when you actively broaden your perspective through something like the identity pie, you remind your brain of all the intact, safe pieces of your life. You signal to your amygdala that the threat is isolated. It's only 10% of the picture.
And what happens physically when the amygdala powers down?
The alarm signal to your hypothalamus shuts off. The adrenal glands stop pumping cortisol. And most importantly, you activate the parasympathetic nervous system.
This is your rest and digest mode.
Exactly. It engages the vagus nerve, which physically slows your heart rate.
Yeah.
Your blood pressure drops. Your digestion turns back on.
And behaviorally, you regain cognitive clarity.
Yes. When you're in a parasympathetic state, you have the bandwidth to make healthier choices, like going for a walk or cooking a nutritious meal, rather than numbing out on the couch with a bottle of wine because you're literally paralyzed by cortisol.
Okay, so we have the mental frameworks: radically accepting the chisel, moving the mental goalposts, and diversifying your identity pie. But resilience also requires physical action in the real world.
Yeah.
You have to build up your resilience bank account while times are relatively good, so you have reserves to draw on when the crisis hits.
And the investments required for that bank account are completely accessible. Dr. Narula emphasizes daily physical exercise purely to metabolize and burn off that excess adrenaline and glucose we talked about earlier.
And nature, right?
Yes, spending time in nature, even just actively looking at trees or listening to birds, has been shown to physically ground the nervous system.
Wow.
But the most vital investment of all, the absolute highest yielding asset, is social support.
The famous Robert Waldinger Harvard study backs this up perfectly.
It does.
They followed a group of men for over 80 years, tracking every metric of their lives. And the ultimate, undeniable predictor of a good, healthy, resilient life wasn't their wealth, their career success, or even their cholesterol levels. It was the quality of their social connections.
Dr. Narula has a deeply moving clinical example of this. She had a retired patient who was profoundly depressed. He had lost the structure of his career, he was smoking weed constantly to numb out, and he was entirely adrift.
Just completely lost.
Yeah. A friend noticed he was sinking and simply suggested he join a local volunteer group that meets to clean up garbage in Central Park twice a week.
Okay.
He dragged himself out to do it, and it entirely saved his life.
Wait, picking up trash healed his nervous system.
It wasn't about the trash, it was about the scaffolding. For
Right.
1 hour, twice a week, he was forced outside, embedded in a reliable, scheduled social structure, physically connecting with other human beings.
Oh, I see.
When his internal framework collapsed, that mundane social connection provided an external framework to hold him up while he rebuilt his identity.
So what does this all mean? It brings us to the final and maybe most controversial piece of the resilience toolkit. Hope. Finding hope in micro moments. Manifesting. Dr. Narula had a patient with Parkinson's disease who sat in her office and asked, "How do I not lose hope when my body is failing?"
And she told him he had to manufacture it in the smallest possible increments, waking up and intentionally saying, "I love you," to his wife, sitting at his computer to write just one more page of his book.
Believing that a new medical trial might be announced tomorrow.
Exactly. She actually advocates for writing specific, tangible goals on a piece of paper, pinning it to the wall with a thumbtack, and consciously listing 6 things you are grateful for every single day.
Even if the only thing you can think of is that the subway train arrived on time.
Yes. She argues this is how you neuroplastically rewire the brain away from despair.
Okay, I have to play devil's advocate here.
Go for it.
Because when people are dealing with actual crushing economic pressure or navigating a terminal illness, forcing yourself to look at a sticky note on the wall and write a gratitude list feels incredibly disconnected from reality. Is that not just fluffy, toxic positivity?
It's a highly valid skepticism. It sounds like a bumper sticker. But this raises an important question. We have to look at what Dr. Narula is actually arguing from a hard neurological standpoint.
Okay.
She points out a brilliant inversion. Stress itself is just manifesting in the negative.
Wait, explain that. How is stress manifesting?
Well, think about what you are actually doing when you are chronically stressed. You are obsessively focusing your brain's energy on the absolute worst-case scenario.
Right.
You're replaying a future disaster over and over in your mind until your physical body reacts as if that worst-case scenario has already happened. You're actively directing your brain's neuroplasticity to build a physical reality of fear.
Your heart races for a lion that isn't even in the room yet.
Oh, exactly. So intentional hope, gratitude lists, writing a goal on the wall, it isn't fluffy New Age magic. It is simply grabbing the steering wheel of that exact same biological mechanism and forcing it to point toward a positive goalpost.
Wow, so we are already experts at manifesting. We're just using that immense biological brain power to torture ourselves.
Exactly. When you force your brain to catalog 6 positive things, you are overriding the amygdala's bias for negativity. You're forcing your brain to acknowledge the intact, safe parts of your environment.
Which turns off the cortisol flood and gives your cardiovascular system the physiological space it needs to heal.
Precisely.
You're literally weaponizing your own neuroplasticity for survival. I love that. So as we pull all of these threads together, remember that you are both the marble and the angel.
You will be forever changed by the chisel of your circumstances, but you retain the profound agency to shape what you become next.
Resilience is an active daily biological investment. It demands that you accept the reality of the chisel, physically move your mental goalposts, diversify your identity pie so no single crisis can bankrupt you, and relentlessly reach out for social connection.
Even if it's just picking up trash in a park on a Tuesday.
Exactly.
And as you process all of this, I'd like to leave you with a final thought to mull over.
Let's hear it.
Modern society constantly sells us the dream of a completely stress-free life. We are endlessly marketed luxury vacations, frictionless delivery apps, and perfectly curated morning routines, all promising to eliminate any trace of discomfort from our days.
Right.
But if resilience is a cardiovascular and psychological muscle, and stress is the required weight that actually builds that muscle, is our modern obsession with avoiding all discomfort actually the very thing making us so terribly fragile? What if the goal isn't to somehow engineer a life with absolutely no storms, but to finally learn how to build a better boat?
Build a better boat. I mean, because at the end of the day, you aren't a rubber band. You were never meant to just snap back into your old shape. You were built to adapt, to grow, and to become something entirely new.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. Take a moment today to step back, map out your own identity pie, and remember your own incredible biological capacity to adapt. Catch you next time.